Hello everyone, it is past 10 o'clock at night, but still it is time for another episode of Music of the Week. I don't have a lot of preamble, we have 5 albums to go through, so I say that we go through them as quick as we can. We start off in Australia with Cable Ties and their newest album, All Her Plans. This is a band I'm not too familiar with, I think this is like their second album, they haven't been around that long from what I know. But you know me, I'm a sucker for good Australian music, I'm especially a sucker for good Australian punk rock, and I'm giving this one an A. Really, it's the highest grade I'm giving this episode as well. Really loved everything about it. I thought the instrumentation was really goddamn good. I loved the switching of moods, but it's not done like so abruptly. It flows into it really well, which speaks wonders of the structuring and really good pacing. The production's really nice too. I love the lyricism. It tells some really good stories at times. Mostly themes of mental health and addiction, but they are told through a really good scope as well. And the performances are absolutely fantastic too. I can't remember the name of the lead singer, but she's really fucking good. Like, her voice, her natural, like, vibrato is fantastic, and she has a lot of charisma and showwomanship, I guess the term would be. So, yeah, I would recommend going to check this one out. It's a really good bit of garage-leaning, punky rocky stuff with some really good shit to say. So, yeah, go check it. Next we have Mental Cruelty with their new album Zwielicht. These are a band from Germany, and don't worry, I'm not going to list like locations for the bands, because I don't really do that anymore. These are a deathcore group though, and I'm giving this one an A-. Part of the reason for that is because I was heavily reminded of Lorna Shore's album Pain Remains from last year, and I think there's good reason for that. The main reason being that this was produced by Josh Schroeder, who also did Pain Remains by Lorna Shore, and funnily enough, The Generation of Danger by Tyler Lawson from last year. Anyway, the dude knows his heavy music production, although Mental Cruelty sounds a little bit too much like Lorna Shore. Like, they have the same sort of similar, like, symphonic deathcore leaning sound. The vocalist, who I believe is a new vocalist for the band, sounds an awful lot like Will Ramos, but like, you know, a more German version, but he has a very similar like vocal style, employing a lot of really long like deep growls and high screams, and just being absolutely fantastic and frenetic. But I think that's where this album differentiates from Pain Remains. Pain Remains had a tendency to go off the rails and let itself go off the rails, but it did rein itself back in. Zwielicht, in comparison, feels a bit too controlled at times. I wanted it to go off the rails a little bit more than it wound up doing, but I still think it's a really well handled bit of chaos. Performances are really great too, especially from the new lead singer and the drummer as well. The lyrical theme of like sort of trying to push on through fear is almost told in a conceptual sort of almost story way, and the instrumentation is really good too. But again, it's very hard not to feel like it's just a Lorna Shore album, but it's more than that. Structurally wise, it's really good too. 49 minutes and not really anything wasted. Builds really well. Comes to a very satisfying close, so yeah, give it a shot. Next we have Neverending Game with their new album Outcry. This is a beatdown style hardcore punk band, and they also get the lowest grade of the episode. This one gets a B-. I thought it was a bit too... Now my main problem, right, is with the structuring, because this is an album that can feel a bit too basic, but for some reason the latter half it tries some experimental stuff that doesn't work, and I feel like if it stuck to the basic stuff, it would have gotten a much higher grade. But it tries some strange shit near the end. Like, it doesn't get away with it as well as Drain's newest album does. But, you know, I think it's because of the beatdown element, because beatdown hardcore is meant to be, you know, usually fairly simplified and, like, very, very punchy with instrumentation. But lyrical themes aren't really, like... They feel a bit weird for the genre. It's, you know, there's some sort of political lean, but, like... also some stuff about love, and it just feels a bit odd. But, you know, I do like most of it, especially the instrumentation. I think the performances are really good too. The production is quite clean as well, a little bit, maybe slightly too polished at times, but I don't hate it. And again, the structurally wise, it's really well handled. I just wish it stuck to the much more simplistic stuff, you know, not overly basic, but basic enough where it does work. So, I don't know. I thought it was a really good album at the end of the day, but it did have one or two things holding back. It's still worth a listen, I think. Next we have Pardoner with their newest album, Peace Loving People. This is an indie punk, well, mostly indie rock / indie punk group, and I don't really know a lot about them. I think this is like their 4th album, and at first I was not as pleased with this one, but I did have a chance to listen back to it, as I usually do with each album I go over. I'm giving this one a B+. I quite liked a lot of the elements of it. I thought it had like a certain like charisma and charm to it, and I liked the instrumentation was pretty good too. I did have a couple of issues with structuring though, because like there's 14 songs and a few of them are quite short, but some of them link weirdly to other songs in some pretty uneven ways. Normally when a band does that, it's usually well handled, as I'll talk about more in the next album I have to cover for this episode. But I don't know, there's just some weird flip-floppy stuff with that sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but you know what, the instrumentation's really good. I like the lyrical themes as well, very summery vibe to them. I like the performances. I think the performances are really good. The production is quite nice as well. Very organic feeling album for the most part. Yeah, no, not really any complaints. Quite liked a lot of it. I do, yeah, okay, well, one complaint, maybe one or two weird things with the structuring, but all in all, solidly put together bit of charming indie, rocky, punky stuff, so yeah, give it a shot. And finally we have Trophy Eyes with their first album in 5 years, Suicide and Sunshine. So this is the band I'm most familiar with because I did listen to their last album, The American Dream, back in 2018, and I thought that album was alright. I feel like this album is kind of a step in the right direction from that, but it also only gets a B+. The weird thing is, and this is something that a lot of reviews pointed out, when John Floriani is doing his more like slightly guttural and emotional and grizzled voice with like the slight scream to it, he sounds amazing. And the band can follow that really well, especially with the more like melodic hardcore sort of vibes that the album can have at times. It's weird when they try and aim for the more pop rocky stuff. And again, I'm not opposed to good pop rock, especially when a band who's usually heavier than that tries it and implements it well. But it's just not something Trophy Eyes can do. It's not something that really worked for them on The American Dream, and there's still some elements of it on this one that don't really work for it at all. You know, they're stuck around and they didn't really need to. But I think the performances themselves are really good. I think the lyricism is especially heartwarming as well and heart-wrenching. I mean, the album's title comes from the loss of Sean Kennedy. If that name sounds familiar to anyone, that was the bassist of Australian bands I Killed the Prom Queen and a band named, and please do not laugh, a band named These Nuts, who are a really good band and you should check them out. Probably I Killed the Prom Queen as well, I don't know, haven't really listened to them before. But, you know, they were also Australian bands, and Sean was a really good friend of Trophy Eyes. He was never a member of the band, but he was good friends with them. And the song named after him, dedicated to him, is one of the most heart-fucking, like, heart-grabbing pieces of music I think I've ever heard. And it should have been the closing song, because, again, there's like 14 songs, and some of the structuring does bounce well between the songs, but I feel like that should have been the last one. It's the 8th song out of 14. It feels a bit strange, but, you know, most of the stuff really works. I do like it when they try on the lighter elements, but they don't deviate from the more hardcore-leaning punky stuff. Again, performances are really good. The production is quite nice as well, especially when it focuses on the punky side of things. Structurally wise, well, I think I already covered that, yeah. But lyrically wise, it does ultimately talk about that loss. And as someone who has lost friends to suicide, songs like Sean especially hit really fucking hard for me. And instrumentation is pretty good too, especially, again, when it goes into the more punky stuff, and I like the guitar work quite a bit too. So, yeah, that'll really cover it for this album. Another one I think you should go and give a spin. So that'll be it for another episode. Time for the whole ranking system. So it goes Never Ending Game with Outcry, Partner with Peace Loving People, Trophy Eyes with Suicide and Sunshine, Mental Cruelty with Zwielicht, and Cable Ties, with All Her Plans. But as always, go and spin all of these at least once. They're all worth your time. As what's next from me, hopefully tomorrow night, the return show, PPW vs AVW. We haven't really gotten a card sorted yet, so we best fucking step on that on the double. But I'm happy to get a show out tomorrow night. And next video will probably be, oh god, my hairline, will probably be Fire the Night Review on Sunday. That's the most likely like video thing you'll see before. So yeah, I'll see you all then. As always, thank you for watching, Rawson. Bye bye.